Welcome back for another amazing episode of Healthy and Wealthy and Wise. I'm your host, Lois Kofi, transformational coach and plant medicine woman. Excited to have you learn today to be inspired and equipped on how to live your best health, your best wealth, by trusting that best innate wisdom that lies within. We'll be talking about psychedelics, microdosing, spirituality, shamanism, inner child healing, trauma release, and so much more. Grab a cup of coffee, enjoy, tune in, invite a friend. We look forward to serving you. It would help if I wasn't muted. Hello, everyone. This is Healthy and Wealthy and Wise. And as I was listening to that intro, I realized that that'll be the last time you guys hear the intro with my name, Lois Kofi. Right now you see Coach Lois on the screen. That'll be the last time you see Coach Lois on here. And I'm in the process of a major shift with my brand. If you've been paying attention, this month is my podcast anniversary relaunch. It's my third year, almost 300 episodes where I've been sharing inspirational guests, monologues, inspiration, also on how to live your best life, your best health, your best wealth, by trusting that a best innate wisdom. So on July 26th and 27th, I invite you to join me for my third year podcast anniversary celebration / relaunch. And as part of that, I'm going to be coming out with a new name of me, a new name personally. Most of you have known me as Lois Kofi for the 45 years I've been alive on this planet, in this incarnation, in this body. And since I have shifted and done over 50 deep dives with sacred plant medicines, the best teachers of remembering who I truly am at the soul level, I have decided that, much like many of my spiritual teachers have, as I've had an ego dissolution, some people call it an ego death. I like to call it just making friends with the past, making friends with my ego, healing a lot of trauma, healing a lot of grief. Once I peeled back all the layers and really deeply stripped all of that away into my beingness of my truth, of what I came into this body to learn, I recognize that I'm no longer that person. I'm no longer Lois Kofi. And I wanted to share, not only share my new name with you guys today, but also share with you the fact that any one of us at any time can choose our own name, right? When you're born, you don't choose your name. Your parents do. It could be you were named after your dad. It could be you were named after your mom. It could be you were named after great-great-grandpa Bill, right? Even my son, we've named him after 3 different lineages, 3 different Henrys, German, Dutch, French. So what's in a name, right? Well, everything. Your name is the first thing that you receive as you breathe into this life. And unless, of course, it took your family a lot longer to decide on your name, you have that with you your whole life. You have it on your tombstone, your gravestone. You know, a lot of people will, if you do the traditional burial in the ground, you actually have a name given to you on your tombstone, right? So I, with the name Lois, because of that, it set the course for me. I'm a member of the International Lois Club, right? Every name has a meaning. And I actually looked it up once, that Lois's meaning had a variety of different origins, Germanic, like Irish, Celtic, whatever, different meanings. And spiritual warrior always stood out to me. And I always loved that. But before I found my deep dive spiritual awakening and healing, I wasn't really living my truth, my real true essence as that spiritual warrior who in many lifetimes was a witch, who had been burned at the stake. In many lifetimes, I had been killed for being a woman, for speaking my truth. And I got to process a lot of that over the past 2.5 years. And as I did that, and I build more courage, more love and compassion, acceptance of my truth, not what society says, not maybe what my parents said, maybe not what even my family name said about me, I followed the path of many of my spiritual teachers who took a different name. If you ever studied, I think his name is Richard Alpert, Ram Dass, he was actually given a new name by his guru. A lot of people who have a spiritual awakening choose a new name or are given a new name. And so I have chosen mine after deep dive connection with my soul purpose, after deep dive connection with my truth, and after much study. And in fact, this is a very common thing. Not just only my spiritual teachers, but a lot of people go through a spiritual awakening and then decide to name themselves. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the how and the why. And then I'll be using that name moving forward. And especially by the time I have my podcast relaunching a spirituality podcast, relaunching a podcast about psychedelics, shamanism, inner child healing, trauma, is all very different from my entrepreneurship podcast, right? It's because as within, so without. And so I wanted to embody my truth more. And if people are talking to you and saying your name multiple times a day, what better way, right, than to have a name that really, truly embodies your essence, your truth, your true nature and purpose, which is a lot of what I uncovered and now help clients to uncover. And I thought I'd read from this book. It's called The Wild Soul Runes. I am from Germanic paganism origins. I've studied a lot with different divine beings and entities. And actually, when I share with you my name, one of the names actually comes from that lineage, that root, all the way back to my lineage's origin story. And so inside of this book, it says, remembering our sacred name. And this is really profound. So I'm going to read it kind of slow so you can really just let this soak in. In our ending, our beginning, bringing the process full circle, we return home to ourselves. After you explore through the runes over the course of this book, but I'm really just talking about this is general for everyone. As you explore, deep dive, spiritual awakening, and coming back to your truth, what is your experience? When you come back to this essential question, what is your true name? What is your true name? I see I have someone commenting below. I just want to say hello. Hey, cool. Awesome. So just talking about what is your true name? That's a question. Words hold power and also provide a key to vast supplies of information. In translating the proper names in different poems, in different stories, in different languages, we receive a new depth of information and a power available not just anywhere. So one of the traditions we are least likely to question is our name, right? The patrilineal, like if you're born into a family, usually they take the father's last name, right? If you are a woman and you get married, you probably take your partner's name. Again, a lot of these things are changing in the world right now. So I'm not trying to put things in a box or traditions in a box or anything. I'm just sharing, like, think about that for a second. I had a client who she specializes in writing and words. And when oftentimes women would take the last name of their husband and start writing different words with their name, they would change. They would change, and not always for the better, actually. So they might have gotten further away from their authentic truth in that example by changing their name. So it is one of the most extraordinary assumptions in recent human history that we have always named our children after the father's line. In fact, surnames are a relatively contemporary invention. Did you know that? With many variations all over the world. So this author's family's last names were often place-based, right? So they were based on where they were born, based on a different feudal system, patriarchal, matriarchal systems or names. Our ancient ancestors had more relational, community, and land-based ways of identifying themselves. So that was part of their time. And it makes sense as we unravel the patriarchal systems, the capitalistic systems, the colonialism, that we would question a tradition rooted in all of these, right? So again, it goes back to that question, what's in a name? And how can changing your name change your life, right? Are you embodying your name? Do you think about that? How many times a day do you say your name, or does someone else say your name? So our ancestors had many names, not just their quote unquote, I guess, legal name, for lack of a better term. I don't think they even called it legal name back in the day, right? They had sacred names, craft names, names that basically were like, what did they do if they were a carpenter, a blacksmith, right? All these different names that were based off of their careers or their gifts, of their offerings. So there are a number of coming of age rites and passage rituals that convey this kind of empowered naming, where the name is chosen by the person rather than given to them by a partner or a parent. So this is all to say that naming is potent. It's an early magic. When the world began, there was sound, right? The sound of your name is oftentimes the most pleasant to your ears, right? And so finding the language of who we are and what we do is part of claiming our lineage as a whole. What is your name story? How does it relate to your ancestors? Do you identify with your name? What is your name for what you do, for your craft or your work? And this author went on to talk about how she has many different names: a legal name, a personal name, a hidden name, a working name, and a magical name. Right? So as I share that with you just to give you some context of how it's very, very common to have a sacred name or a spiritual name. Some of us have nicknames, right? Maybe you never shared with the world. So I personally was guided, just to kind of start to wrap this up. I was personally guided by spiritual teachers that are living on this plane, as well as those that are not living on this plane. Being in the plant medicine space has allowed me to reconnect with a great master teacher, a divine feminine woman by the name of Mary Magdalene. She made so many sacrifices in her time, as the legend goes. She was judged, condemned, called a whore, a prostitute, a sinner by the church. And it was actually because she was so loved by her consort, her partner, Jesus. And again, I'm not a religious person, just so you know. These are some of the greatest teachers of all time. And they oftentimes their stories got skewed depending on, the agenda or who was telling the story, right? And so when I rediscovered the truth about her and what she did help the world and to be the apostle of the apostles, and to be someone who defied a lot of judgment, a lot of condemnation. And even one legend goes that she hid in a cave for like 5-6 decades because they wanted to kill her because of her truth. And so my new name that I have been rebirthing as I rebirth myself is MisT Magdalena Grace. And so the Magdalena coming after Mary Magdalene, and what she has taught me over the past 18 months of really doing a lot of deep dive healing on my sacred feminine, really working a lot on that wounded feminine, softening back into my truth, softening back into love and compassion, because I was so hard on myself, so critical. And then as within, so without, then that showed up in many areas of my life which, I had learned to become a binge drinking workaholic because I was denying my truth. I was drinking over it, working over it, social media, scrolling over it, all of the things, right? Because I was Lois Kofi. I was the sales superstar. I was this blah, 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 blah. All of these labels that came with that name don't mean anything to me anymore, right? So through a lot of healing, a lot of powerful, deep tears, oceans of tears, and releasing and letting my former self go, then another teacher came into my life through the Valkyrie, through the beauty of Freya and the women of the Germanic paganism deities. If you've watched the movie Thor, you understand the Valkyrie. So Freya is the goddess of abundance and one of the primary female divine feminine deities of the Germanic pagan origins. And she brought to me the MisT port of my name. Our home has actually been covered in mist almost every morning since last November. Very rare, very different, not normal weather. And many of my experiences and clarity came through the mist. And she came to me as part of my research and study into myself and reconnecting to my ancestors, reconnecting to my origin story, my soul's eternal origin story and truth. So that's where the MisT and the Magdalena came from. And then the grace is just, I was given so much grace, so much compassion, so much love, so much wisdom through the medicine, through the ancestral healing, through the trauma release, through the grief release, all of that healing, that I was able to want to be able to not only have that in my name, but to be able to embody that and to give that to my clients, to my healing clients, to my spiritual mentees who are studying with me, who are wanting to remember who they truly are. And so, yeah, it was a cave in France. You got it. Yeah, sorry, I can't recognize who you are. So I'll look at it later. For some reason, when I do these lives, the Facebook doesn't always let me see your beautiful name and your beautiful face. So if you want to comment below, #live, where you're tuning in from. Hey, Gail, wonderful. Feel free to comment, #live, and what city, state, or country you're in right now. So I wanted to share with you more of the why, because you're going to be seeing it. It's already changed on most of my platforms. Facebook's actually the last one I'm going to be changing it on. And by putting MisT Magdalena Grace out there, I also want to lead by example to help you remember who you truly are, to really connect with your heart, to really, the question I asked earlier is like, what's in a name? Do you embody that name? Is it something that inspires you, or do you, like me, after a while, in some cases, I had shame around my name, some family stuff, which of course I worked through all of that, healed a lot of that. And to be able to then be proud of my name. I'm still proud of Lois Tiedemann Kofi. Don't get me wrong. There's no like hiding, running, shame story here. It's more of, what do you want to embody? They talk about to think is to create, and you've heard me talk about the 3 different brains in our body. Our heart is our biggest, most magnetic brain. Some people say 5,000. Some people say hundreds of thousands times stronger than this brain, right? So I wanted to embody my heart name, my sacred name, MisT Magdalena Grace. To be able to write that, to speak it, to hear it, to live and breathe it and walk it out into the world and magnify, reverberate that out from my cells, to share that love and compassion and that light that I was given by MisT and Magdalena, and the grace that came through all of that. So we all have multiple names as an option, right? You might have a hidden name, you might have a spiritual name, you might have a sacred name, maybe you have a nickname. I just encourage you to take a look at that and to really study how your name impacts your life and how you embody that name. Going back to the ancestors will help you understand your name a lot more. And going back and even going into the spirit world and the realms where you can connect with other great divine beings and teachers, ask them, am I embodying my name? Or how could I change? Or what do I got to heal? What do I got to release? What do I got to self-discover about me to live my most authentic, truest nature and purpose, my most authentic truth of who I really am and or want to be embodying in the world. So I'm excited to have made this official announcement. As now MisT Magdalena Grace, I'll have a new intro for my podcast and all of the things. So in case there's any confusion, if you want to hear more and see the relaunch of my podcast, I'll be giving away a free plant medicine ceremony, a free microdosing coaching month program with me to, again, helping you remember who you truly are, healing a lot of the stuff that's holding you back from living your truest and shining your biggest, brightest light in the world. So it's July 26th, July 27th. Must enter to win to win the prizes. Otherwise, just come and celebrate. If you don't want to win a plant medicine ceremony or you don't want to win a microdosing coaching, you just want to come and hear. I have 7 amazing guests, an amazing sponsor in Soulvine. It's my beautiful partnership. It's all listed. It's going to be 4 to 7 p.m. Pacific, both days. And again, my podcast is Rebirthing as a Spirituality podcast, covering plant medicine, also known as psychedelics, shamanism, healing, inner child trauma, somatic healing, different types of amazing cutting edge therapies to help you truly heal mind, body, and spirit, because they're all connected. So please reach out to me if you have any questions, any thoughts, and also if you're looking for other guests to be a part of the show. I am always looking for sponsors as well. So you can go to my patron page at patron.podbean.com/Lois Kofi. If you want to be a part of this movement, my vision is to have over 1,000 subscribers to really heal, to really get to the root cause of their dis-ease, mental, physical, and spiritual, just like I did, to be able to live your best health, your best wealth, and your best wisdom. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Until next time, MisT Magdalena Grace signing off for Healthy and Wealthy and Wise. Here's to your best health, your best wealth, by trusting that innate best wisdom within. Bye-bye for now.